I'm not a crook.
A TV comedian is running for president. A Republican senator is doing stand-up, and the far right is screaming about the outing of a prominent educator, a fictional prominent educator. Our number one story in the countdown. For 40 years, in such times of need, I have frequently relied on one man to make some sense of this crap. In a moment, that man, George Carlin, will join us. First, this story. Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling said last Friday her books included as a subtext a plea for an end to hatred, to bigotry, and that the most stalwart of the adults in the series, the headmaster Dumbledore, was gay. That was never explicit in the book, nor did many readers even wonder or care, not softening the backlash. A posting on Blogs for Brownback described it as, quote, revolting. Dumbledore is a gay homosexual who doesn't deserve to live on God's green earth. All right, reminder, he's fictional. Another right-wing blogger said Ms. Rowling was, quote, knocking the Christians, but the choicest commentary from the conservative blog Newsbusters, with an entry by regular columnist Mark Finkelstein, the sometime Republican chairman of Tompkins County, New York. That's where Cornell is, so trust me, he does have a lot of spare time, as you'd guess. What's that, he writes? It now turns out that Dumbledore is gay, and while Jerry Falwell was thoroughly lambasted in the MSM, that's mainstream media, for his suggestion, the Times tells us that Rowling's revelation inspired applause. Somewhere Jerry Falwell is smiling. You may vaguely recall that among Reverend Falwell's more serious disturbances of the peace, he insisted that the Teletubby Tinky Winky was gay. Joining me now, as promised, a man who is no stranger to the absurdity in our society and whose biting commentary, not just the stuff of comedy but of revelation, his recently released career retrospective, George Carlin, All My Stuff, includes 12 HBO specials spanning 3 decades. George Carlin, pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. This is the best news show ever. I told that to one of your producers, and I want you to know that. I've seen them all, and it's just, especially the first 35 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
It's just unparalleled.
I got bad news. Between you and I, we got 6 minutes to completely screw that into the ground.
Okay,
right?
That's good.
Dumbledore,
yes.
Jerry Falwell,
yes.
Tinky Winky. I'm missing something on why gay, non-existent characters are so important.
Don't these professional Christians have something to do during the day? I mean, didn't Jesus leave instructions about how to plan your day, something constructive? Didn't he kind of help people? Didn't he, look out for the afflicted, to use half of A.J. Liebling's quote, to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable to complete it? It just seems that they get off on these tangents, and of course the homosexuality and the reading of science fiction, such as the Bible, and giving it the standard of truth. I mean, it would be cartoonish if it weren't, dangerous to some people.
All right, and leading people to establish theocracies and go to war and all the rest of that.
Yeah, and instilling guilt and shame and fear in people.
There's a Republican poll out that says that Stephen Colbert is 5th among Democrats. They surveyed 1,000 people who, I don't know, like Republicans or whatever the polling was. But is there a period of time, have we gotten there? Because Mencken predicted that eventually we'd actually elect the dumbest guy in America. Are we going to someday elect a satirical president, a guy who really has no intention of having he's doing it as a sales tool for something else?
Well, we're working on it. I mean, we did elect something of that nature in 2000 and 2004. If you want to look at it from a long distance, if you're up close, it may not be that. I was around in 1960 when Professor Irwin Corey ran for president, and I was around in 1968 when Pat Paulson ran for president, and I think Larry Flint had a go at it there. For what? It's why is he the 5th among Democrats? Doesn't he play a Republican on television?
Yeah, apparently he comes in 10th or 11th down there with Tom Tancredo. He's only got like 1% of the Republicans because he is, as Bob and Ray once posited, was the best way to try to get elected. Run for both the Democratic and Republican nominations. You have 2 chances.
He's just a wonderful comic relief, and I hope he goes far, and I hope he can get a couple of primary states under his belt.
We really upset this thing. The reverse of Colbert, I want to play you this clip. It's Senator Arlen Specter and a story that he says his colleague's father used to tell. Play this thing.
Dan's mother and I have sex almost every night. We almost have sex on Monday. We almost have sex on Tuesday.
as odd as it is to see a Republican senator, even a fairly liberal one from Pennsylvania, standing there at the Improv.
Yes.
Is there something positive about this? Because, you know, if Nelson Rockefeller had made that joke 40 years ago, not only would he have been out of the presidential race, he would have had to resign as governor of New York. Just anything that touchy. Is it better that we're letting these guys get up and have fun?
I liked Rockefeller because he gave the finger to the Republican convention, the conservatives in 1964, and then he died in the saddle, which I thought was a nice thing for the Republic. Of course, he had his screw you money off and put away a long time before.
Yeah.
I think that's a great joke that Spector told. I was waiting for Phil Spector. I wasn't sure. Edith Spector might have been okay for me.
Yeah, well, Phil is no longer involved in the government. Well, and not directly anyway.
No.
Now he's being pursued by the government.
Right.
I mentioned Bob and Ray. Those were my heroes when I was a kid. At the height of Watergate, I got to interview them, and I said, you know, why don't you do, because they've gone after McCarthy in a limited way, but a very effective way. So why didn't you do more political humor? And Ray Goulding said, how could we make that funnier?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way about President Bush?
Well, I use the sledgehammer. I don't bother with the rapier on Bush. And I don't really do a lot of political humor, but I have some glancing blows in the current show that I'm developing. And one of them is the reference to him as Governor Bush and the fact that I will always think of him, no matter where they hang his portrait, no matter where they put his statue. That's what he is. He's Governor Bush because that's the last elected office he held legally in this country. So I like moving in and really hurting them.
Yeah.
I don't like this let's be cute and let's be clever. I like smashing them. That's the only way to take care of them.
The other day, and speaking of smashing things, I quoted in this newscast, first item in the newscast, the 7 words you can't say on television, the story of them, and the fact that everybody forgets that the first part of that story is the guy who had his phone tapped and would answer the phone, bleep Hoover.
Yeah.
We're back there. How did we get back to the same position that we were when you made that joke originally in the 70s?
You're talking about wiretapping and spying on people. Yeah. Well, I don't know that we ever really left. See, I don't think that Frank Church committee really did any good. I don't think all of these reforms. I think power does what it wants. Power does what it wants, and now they're just more naked about it. Now they just put it right out front and say, "This is what we're doing to you folks." It's this country's finished. It's been sliding downhill a long time. And everybody's got a cell phone that makes pancakes, so they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to make any trouble. People have been bought off by gizmos and toys in this country, and no one questions things anymore. Seriously, that's what I love about your show. I mean, you bring the thing right to them, and that's the only way to do it.
If you got the platform and you're not doing something with it, you might as well have a trained monkey out here. The one and only George Carlin. The retrospective is called George Carlin, All My Stuff, on DVD. Go buy it. A pleasure having you here.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
That's